Well, hello there, my beautiful, beautiful friends and my fellow space blobs. Welcome to an energy that feels like home to me. I have quite a bit of Leo energy, including Leo Sun, and this new moon is happening right before my birthday. And I feel very intrigued by it, intrigued by the themes. I think the questions and the feelings around this new moon are really, really potent and powerful. They ask a lot of, I think, tough questions, but also questions we're all longing to ask about our lives and who we are, and really brings up some beautiful, juicy, powerful energy, like this inner roar of creativity and entering the heart through a very fierce and clear energy that I think is so beautiful. So let's get into what this Leo new moon is all about. This Leo new moon is full of the energy of new beginnings. And we always work with that when we're talking about a new moon, right? Because this is generally where we set our intentions, begin a new moon cycle, open ourselves up to the possibility of whatever we're going to work with for the next 4 weeks. But this new moon has a particularly potent emphasis on new beginnings because it's happening just a few days after the Sun and Venus have met up in Leo. And that signals Venus's rebirth, Venus's new year and a half long cycle. And so there's this really strong emphasis on rebirth, renewal, coming up and out of the hidden and unseen into the world again. And I think we'll be feeling a lot of that energy and a deep acknowledgement of how we have changed form and the wisdom we are moving with moving forward. Now, of course, this is a new moon in Leo, and it is during a very potent Venus in Leo time as well. So this is all going to be so deeply tied to creativity and moving from the heart space, which is very powerful and super helpful. So this new moon is asking a couple of really important questions that I love to explore and ask myself whenever I am moving through a new chapter in my life. One is, this is a really deep moment of honesty about what it is that we want to begin. What do I long to begin? What do I long to open? And the follow-up question to that is, am I allowed to take a small step in that direction? This is a really interesting question to ask yourself, because there will be parts of yourself that are like, obviously, yeah, I can take however many steps I want. And there will probably be parts of yourself that feel that having a small step isn't valid, either because it's too small or because it would be foolish to begin something new. And depending on who you are, the different parts of yourself are going to tell different stories. But this is a really good place to check in. If there are things that are shifting and changing in you, beginnings that you are wanting to open, checking in with the stories you tell yourself about your permission to begin those journeys, permission to start as small as you need to, permission to be optimistic and open enough to begin. This is a really great new moon to check in with those stories, check in with what your inner dialogue is going through on that front. The other set of questions that I think are really interesting for this Leo new moon is when we're dreaming up, some of these new exciting adventures, visions, vision boarding, thinking about things, dreaming, which I highly recommend doing during this new moon because it is going to be very lovely and dreamy. There's a dreamy quality to this whole new moon. Very playful, very curious, is paying attention to if we are bringing ourselves with us in that dreaming, because we will start envisioning and imagining where we're going next, right? What that's going to look like, what that's going to feel like, the magical there that we're headed. But are we bringing ourselves along? Am I bringing myself along for the ride? Or am I trying to abandon myself and leave myself behind in order to catch up to a mystical vision of myself? This is a really interesting set of questions to ask as well. I've been really noticing when I'm envisioning things for myself that rather than asking what I'm trying to leave behind, but we have a lot of legitimate things that we're ready to break cycles and do all of that. But rather than asking what I'm trying to get away from, what I'm trying to get towards, I'm trying to think about what I want to bring with me. What about myself do I want to bring with me? What parts of myself do I want to see happy and accepted and loved and included in my visioning. And I'd highly recommend exploring, do you let your weird and awkward self be included in the envisioning? Do you allow your maybe self that needs certain assistance or help along on your visioning of your journey moving forward? This is a really, really powerful moon to include all of those parts that are coming with us, whether we think we're going to self-improve them out or not. And so how do we include them in our visioning? How do we honor them? How do we make them a part of our entire process? Now, there are a couple of aspects going on during this new moon. I mentioned that this new moon's happening right after Venus is conjunct with the sun. So Venus is not too far away, influencing this dreamy, creative energy, asking some of these deep heart questions about how we include ourselves in our own dreaming and if we allow ourselves to begin. But it's also a new moon that is lighting up Lilith, dark moon Lilith, right next door. So they are in conversation, sun, moon, and Lilith. What a powerful trio to have on a new moon. For those of you who haven't worked with Lilith much, she's often, in a nutshell, called and connected to the dark feminine, right? The shadow side of the feminine, the fierce, slightly more destructive side of the feminine. For me, Lilith always illuminates themes around belonging, around rebellion, and around leaving behind systems. She illuminates the inner rebel that is tired of upholding certain systems. Here in Leo, she is going to be illuminating how we need to use our creativity to break away from anything that's holding us kind of stagnant or in the mundane. There's a very fiery desire to see things break open and begin. And I think that can be a really interesting dynamic. And that is why I was bringing up that question, am I allowed to take one small step in the direction that I'm longing to go? Because I think a lot of times we think about an energy like Lilith, that it's maybe we need to use all our firepower and just smash down a wall and burst forward into the next scene. And that's how we're going to rebel. That's how we're going to break away from any old patterns or any old ties that are hanging on to us or begin a new cycle. But for me, I think one of the most potent ways that we can include Lilith in any part of our lives is including that energy more consistently in the mundane. So that means actually honoring what you need. You know, the inner rebel comes, the inner anger, the inner desire to sabotage a little bit, right, comes from a genuine need, often a genuine longing. So the more that we're actually incorporating that wild energy that is expressing needs and wants and those things that really need expression in the world, the more we just take little steps and we incorporate that into little moments throughout our normal days, the more that we will actually be able to connect to our path and to our soul signature. And so I think it's a reminder as well that we don't have to set everything on fire in order to be connected to our path. In fact, this is all about the small steps that we take from the heart and the actual listening to what we need. The other conversation that is going on with this new moon is a pretty big one as well, which is a square with Uranus and Taurus. And man, do I love the conversations going on between Taurus and Leo right now, with the energy moving through Leo and all the energy in Taurus, which is Jupiter and Uranus. I just love this because for me, Taurus and Leo are so deeply connected. They are two of the fixed signs, and they are both so deeply tied to creation and how we create and how we make beauty in the world and how we go for it and how we sustain that over the long time and how deeply nourishing that creative force is in our lives. So whenever they're in conversation, these two signs just, I think, bring so much unique perspective. For me, this takes us back to those questions I was asking about beginning, because as we know, squares are often asking a longing question. They're asking something that we were really needing to look at. You know, I think for me, squares always represent a longing. attention inside of ourselves that we want so badly to acknowledge and recognize and free. And here it is, that idea of, is there something that you've been intimidated to start? Maybe it's because you feel like it's too late, or like you've waited too long. Maybe it's the sunken cost fallacy of that you've put so much into this other thing that if you leave it behind now, you'll have wasted all of that and it won't be worth starting something new. There are a lot of different ways we may feel intimidated to begin. Beginning is a big topic. I would love to get into that in more detail in another chat at some point. But one of the first things I would say is this goes back to that idea of like, what's the first step you are allowed to take? And what are the stories around if you're allowed to do that? So this is just an acknowledgement too of like, are you a little scared to begin something? What is that thing? And letting yourself see the fears and the resistances and the worries, and noticing what are stories that have been fed to you by our culture, by movies, by advertising, all of that, noticing what stories you've built for yourself to keep yourself safe, as well as perhaps noticing that when you finally let yourself just look at that longing that you have, that really you are okay with starting it. You just needed that moment to acknowledge that you wanted it in the first place. And I think that square really, really speaks to that conversation. In the background of this new moon as well, we have Mars and Virgo trining Uranus and Taurus. And I love that trine because it is, once again, what just gets you excited to learn about. What do you love learning about? What do you love deep diving on? What just brings you to life? It doesn't have to have anything to do with your career objectives, who you think you need to be in the world, what you think you need to do. What do you just have fun getting lost in? This is a beautiful time to let yourself connect with those things. So overall, it's a really supportive moon. It's really beautiful. It does have a very honest energy. It will want to get to the heart of what you're actually wanting and want you to like really see that and illuminate it and honor it and respect it. So if you're trying to ignore something that is wanting to be expressed in you at this time, this is kind of a new moon that won't really let you ignore those longings and those desires and those visions and those creative visions. So just recommending focusing on the few days around this new moon. What are small steps you can take that are honoring your inner rebel, your inner wild child, your inner creative, your inner vision? It doesn't need to be the whole enchilada. Doing something is everything. And it can be the tiniest something you've ever thought of. It can be literally just taking out your paint supplies, just putting them on the table. Not even doing anything else with that. Putting a couple brushes on the table. It could be as small as you want it to be. But start to honor it in whatever way feels like it's not creating resistance in you and is allowing you to move forward. I am pulling some cards from my cat tarot. I think if you've been with me long enough or you're on my Patreon, you know that I love to play with this, and it is Leo season, so it feels extremely appropriate to connect with the cat tarot. This is such a playful deck. It's very fun-loving, easygoing, and I just love working with it. It brings me so much joy. Does anybody know if there is a dog tarot? I haven't looked that up, but if there is, I would also love that. As somebody who now has my sweet dog with me in my life, and he is napping at my feet right now, I need to get a little bit more dog energy into my life as well when it comes to tarot. So yeah, let me know. Do you know? We have Two of Wands. I love this card. And it's adorable. Two of Wands is an amazing energy. And it's very new moon. It's probably one of the most connected to like new moon energy that I can think of. Oh, two cards fell on my lap. Let's see what they are. The Star. I love it. And the King of Pentacles. Very lovely energetics here. Very dreamy. The first two cards have everything to do with envisioning beyond what is just here right now. When you look at both of these, they're envisioning things they could go for, these two cats, right? Two of Wands traditionally is a figure standing at a harbor looking out at the ocean, at the sea, where ships have been sent off into the world. And you can't see them. They're way out there doing their thing. And it's a figure waiting there at the gateway, at the doorway of that energy one day meeting that person. For me, it's the feeling of being able to hold that energy in that space and being able to hold the unknown, the unimaginable horizon, and know that it's building and coming, and being willing to sit long enough with the vision to start feeling movement toward it, and to stay connected with it long enough to allow it to kind of materialize in our lives through those little actions, through the way that we honor ourselves and our becoming every day. And of course, the rule with the star is always this energy always comes with reward, with revelation, with the thing that you're longing for. But the deal is that you have to leave behind familiar things. Not everything, but whatever it is that you're like kind of doing right now, you're going to have to step outside of the comfort zone a little bit, step outside of the known regions of the world a little bit. It will involve being bold enough to go over beyond the known. In this case, this cat is daring this glass of water to go into a new space, right? But it's the daring to try, the daring to dream, the daring to allow yourself to even acknowledge your dreams. And I think that's what's so powerful about this new moon in Leo, is that it's all about how potent it is to acknowledge our dreams. Now, finally, we have the King of Pentacles. Having some tuna from the jar. King of Pentacles, this reminds me of this kind of Taurus-Leo conversation that's going on in the world right now and during this new moon, of sustained growth over time. A lot of the visions coming in during Leo season this year and during this new moon have to do with what we build over a period of time, not just in the next 3 months or the next couple of weeks or even the next moon cycle. Some of these visions are going to be things that maybe take a year or two to build. Maybe will take and require a lot of slow, tiny movements in order to come to full fruition. And so many of the big things in our lives do take a few years, when you look back and you think about things that you've wanted, a degree, an education of some kind, a skill set of any kind takes, always longer than we think. Creating a friend group or community, these things take time, and we have to hold that vision long enough to allow it to come to full fruition. And that is really what King of Pentacles is all about. I think the King of Pentacles also is a reminder, especially here with the Cat Tarot, to enjoy what we have in front of us as well. So finding those ingredients that are working with us and bringing us to life in the present as well is just as important as holding the vision of the future. It's a little reminder to ground yourself with what is around you that is holding you in a beautiful way. And with that being said, I think we've covered kind of all the themes that I felt coming through as I sat down with this new moon. I am going to be doing a new moon activation, visualization, exploration with my patrons over on Patreon. It's going to tie in as well to our Alchemy of Venus retrograde journey that we are on. We are right smack dab in the middle of it, and you can still join us for all of that. You could binge watch the first half of that entire series and get all exploring into this journey with Venus and beyond. And for me, the Alchemy of Venus retrograde is really beautiful, specifically for Venus retrograde, but also for life, also for creativity, also for caring for ourselves. So I'd love to see you over on Patreon. It's really easy to join. You can come and go as you want. It's an amazing space. Thank you to all of my patrons that are with me there. I love you all so much, so much. I love it when you stick around here as well. I have so much stuff I'm excited to create as we enter into the darker season of the year up here in the Northern Hemisphere. Like very, very excited for the energies to come. And of course, you can find me on Instagram too. So I love you all so much. Have a beautiful new moon in Leo. I'll see you for our next chat very soon.